Hello everybody. One of the very early videos that I did, I say very early, actually it might feel a little earlier to me than it may have been, but in one of the earlier videos that I did, I came to this place. In fact, it must have been the autumn of 2019. This is the Elan Valley, and it's one of my favourite places to drive through in Wales. I don't come here as much as I'd like, but I do come here occasionally, and when I do, it tends to be when I want to take a picture of something. Now, when I was here last time, I got a really nice shot, which is essentially out across this lake. But it wasn't perfect. I had a long exposure shot on there because I wanted to smooth out the water, but I didn't really know what I was doing. You know, I had some idea. I've got a better idea now. And so what I wanted to do today was to come here and to get this shot again, because actually I think there's a really good shot in it. And in order to do that, I'm going to use my Fuji X-T3, as I always do on this channel, and I'm going to have a look through this 10-24 lens. Now, there's a good reason for doing that. Usually when I take a photo, when I take a landscape photo, I'm using my 18-135 lens. But I don't often zoom in too much, so I don't often use that 135 area of the lens. I'm usually on 18. Usually I'm essentially using a very powerful super zoom lens as a prime lens with a little bit of extra functionality in it when I need it. Because I quite like having these wide vistas of stuff. So there's two questions here. What can I do with 10mm? Is it going to be any good? Or anything in that range of 10mm? Or if I set this at 18mm, am I going to get a better picture than I would have done if I had just used the 18-135? Now, in theory, I will, because in theory, this is a better lens than the 18-135. Not by much, but possibly by just enough to make it worthwhile. So right now I'm perched on the edge of a road, and it's a little bit precarious. The cars come here. I am here, and although there's plenty of room for cars to get by and everything, I don't want to be here too long. Partly because there's a bunch of flies around and they're really annoying. But so I need to set this up relatively quickly, choose my shot, and I'll be back in a minute or so in order to show you what shot I'm going to get with this particular video. Okay, so I've got my shot set up, and I'm just going to stick this onto video mode, basically so you can see what I've got in frame. What we have here at a shutter speed of 2/50th of a second, an ISO of 160, and an F number of 11, which is a lot higher than I usually do, is the same sort of shot that I got before. I've got the nice trees in the foreground. I'm focusing on this little part in the background because actually that's kind of the area of interest, although you want to see all the water that you've got below there as well. It looks relatively sharp when I've just done a test shot to see what it's like. And yeah, I'm quite pleased with the way that it's composed. Now, the difference between this shot and the last shot that I did was the last shot was a long exposure shot. I did it at this time of day, possibly not at this time of year, I'm not sure. But that allowed you to do certain things like smooth out the water and have the clouds going above. Unfortunately, this is the 10-24mm lens, and I don't have filters for it yet. So I can't do any long exposures tonight unless I change my lens, which I may or may not do, not sure. But for right now, this is actually a pretty good shot. At least I hope it's going to be a pretty good shot. So we're going to take that image. Let's do this. Now, the other thing to know about this is that I've got it bracketed. So as well as having the 2/50th f, where are we? F13 actually now, and an ISO, let's make sure that's ISO 160. So that's giving me a fairly good exposure. The problem with that, however, is that Some bits are really bright because we've got a really bright sky today, and some bits are really dark because every time you've got, a set of trees, all you can see is the really dark bits. So in order to compensate for that, I'm going to give it a bracketed shot, just in case you can't pull out in Lightroom what you need to when you've done it. Making sure that the Q is on, pressing the Q button, make sure the timer is on 2 seconds so that I don't introduce any extra movement to it, although at 250 it shouldn't be too bad. I'm going to as well turn off, oh dear, I've moved the focusing ring, turn off the optical image stabilization because you're on a tripod and there shouldn't be any movement. It's not windy today, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. Going to press the button now, and then we've got those 3 shots, right? Really nice and simple. If I review them again, I really want to just review the one. In fact, the middle shot actually looks the best of the lot. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. That's nice and sharp all the way through the frame. Like I said, I was on f11, so that should give you a really nice sharp thing in focus. Now, as to where the lens ended up, the lens is on 18mm, so it's clear to me that actually at 18mm, I'm actually really pleased with the quality of this lens at 18mm. But 18mm seemed to be about right for this particular image. But you could have pulled back a bit, you could have had a lot more foreground in there. If there was something of interest, there's ferns down here, if there was something more of interest in the foreground, I may have done that and then made that foreground a bit more of a focus. As it is, this is the shot that I came here to get today, and I'm pretty pleased with it.
Let's quickly take a look at what I was talking about there. Now, these images are both straight out of the camera with no editing, and I'll show you a final edit later. But this was the first one taken at 18mm, and to be honest, I probably should have used a longer lens here, although the intention was to show the wide vista of the scene. Now, compare that to this one, which is at 10mm, slightly different angle, but you can see the subject of the image, which is really that outcrop of trees, is less prominent in the frame. And so what you're adding to the picture, you're adding at the front of the image, there's nothing there of real interest. Now, that would be different if you had a rock or some tree stumps or something else that would draw your eye into the picture. But that's not what we have here, and you have to be careful, and this is something that I failed to do on this image, and I will hold my hands up to that. You have to be careful to make sure that you're taking an image that has everything right in the frame to begin with. You don't want to have to reframe absolutely everything when you come back into the computer. But let's just take a look at what would happen if I had a much longer lens. This is just the center of that original image, but as you can see, it does make for a more interesting shot. All of that means that I'm going to have to go back to Elan at some point and grab this shot, which actually isn't as much of a chore as it sounds.
Well, this might be a little bit of a shorter video than I was expecting to make, because the idea was that I would stop in various different locations at Elan and I'd take a picture and I'd show you what the picture was. Elan Valley is one of those places, I mean, in Britain we're kind of surrounded by areas of outstanding natural beauty, but Elan Valley in particular is somewhere where that is true in abundance. You know, there are places in the world where you can go and you can just turn somewhere and look and there is a picture. And then turn somewhere else and look and there's a picture, and Elan is very much like that. So what I did after I finished taking the shot that I'd come here to get was that I went down the valley. Essentially, I drove the length of the valley and then I turned left and I kept going, and there was still stuff to see, because it's one of those really amazing places where there is always something else to see. And the idea that I had was, okay, well, maybe I'll stop here and find a location and take a sunset shot, and that will finish off the video really nicely. I didn't find that sunset shot, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But what I did find, I drove next to a kite as it was trying to find food. And that's something that Wales is brilliant for that. If you want to see birds of prey in the wild, this is an absolutely phenomenal place to come and do it. And there were 3 or 4 red kites circling various different areas as I drove along today, and that is something that it's really, really worth seeing. You know, it's really worth coming to these locations just to see. Unfortunately, because I am an idiot and kind of didn't think about it before I came out, I didn't have the right lens with me, and my camera was in the back of the car. So I haven't got any footage of it. I haven't got any pictures of it at all. Never mind, it didn't matter. I have taken a few shots, and actually where I'm standing at the moment, just over the road, there is a weak bridge, and running underneath it is a river. And that river is running out into one of the reservoirs. And I have got a picture of that, and it was absolutely just what I wanted. And in fact, I couldn't have taken that picture had it not been for the 10-24 lens. So even now, second day I've taken it out, it's actually doing something really good for me. It's actually, you know, making shots that I couldn't have got before possible. I remember I tried to do a very similar shot to that a couple of years ago with an 18mm lens, and I ended up panning down. I didn't have this tripod with the ball head. I had a pan and tilt head on it. I ended up panning down, screwed it up completely missed the shot. But I think I've got something today, and I'm really excited to take that back into Lightroom. Now, I did say I would tell you why I've decided not to wait around for a sunset tonight. And it's really simple. The weather forecast today was that we'd have a really nice day today, and then from late evening onwards, sort of 10 o'clock onwards tonight, and into tomorrow and into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'd have weather warnings of heavy thunder. And so I thought tonight would be the last chance I would get of getting a sunset this week. I miss out on sunsets on Mondays and Tuesdays because I'm doing other things. I don't always get to do them when I go out and do other videos, because sometimes I need to get back and I need to edit the video, and there's other work that I have to do. So if I try and get a sunset shot, I tend to actually plan to go out at that time to get a sunset shot. And until this week, I didn't think I'd be able to get one, and I thought I might be able to get one today, and I can't. So as I was driving around, I noticed at the side of the road, on the mountains, on the hills around me, I actually noticed that the weather was coming in, the clouds were coming in, and that usually means, and they do look like rain clouds at the moment, it usually means that the rain isn't too far away. We're in Wales, it's not a particularly dry area of the world. So you kind of have to deal with stuff like that. But it's all right, because I've got, I hope, 2 shots today that I think I'm really pleased with. And the maybe one more, I'll see what I've got when I turn the camera on, when I'm back in Lightroom. I will have to have a look anyway.
Here is that shot, fully edited this time, of a river snaking into the distance. And this really is a lesson for people who are just starting out as well. This isn't the best shot in the world, but I was really excited to take it when I was out, because it was a shot that I never would have been able to take before. And if you take anything away from this video, perhaps it should be this. When you get a new lens or a bit of kit, play around with it. Take it out like I'm doing in this video and make lots of mistakes. And you will make lots of mistakes, and that's fine. Because whilst something is new, the things it can do for you are novel. Over time, that novelty is going to wear off, and you'll be left with having to find interest in better composition or better lighting rather than the eccentricities of your kit. And that's when your images, and that's when the quality of your images will jump tenfold.
Before we finish today, I did want to just talk about something that's been really bothering me for the last few weeks, and that's anxiety. It was something that I suffered from a long time ago, and I don't have the same problems that I used to, which is really good. But this last week, I had my second COVID jab, which I'm very grateful for. And then I had to have a blood test this week, because these things happen. And the morning of the blood test, something just clicked inside, and I was feeling incredibly anxious. And it wasn't the actual test itself, because I got to the surgery and I was fine. It was something else. And sometimes you get these feelings and you can't always pinpoint exactly where they've come from, but it's really important to kind of notice them, notice that you're having these things, and try and find ways of dealing with it. More and more, I'm noticing that photographers are having this exact same problem, and yet they've never had to deal with the sort of the anxiety of going out and taking photos. And the reason that they're getting that anxiety, I think, is a sort of a paralysis that we've had since lockdown. A lot of people don't want to go out still. A lot of people are still scared, and I don't blame them. I mean, we're in a situation that is pretty much unprecedented for our generations, and it's. I don't want to come down on one side or another. I don't want to say this is the way that we should do things and this isn't the way that we should do things. That's not really why I'm here. What I want to do is to try and help people who are having that problem right now. And, you know, we have to exist with the rules that we currently have. So how do you deal with that issue if you're finding it difficult to leave the house, perhaps? And I've talked about this before, and I've said, you know, this is something that's different for absolutely everybody. This is something that I think many people have to find their own personal solutions to. But one of the things that somebody had mentioned the other day that I really did want to mention is the Calm app. This is a little app you can get for your mobile phone, and it runs through different things for you, and it helps make you calm. It helps to ease that anxiety. And I tried it the other night, and it's actually really, really good. Now, it's all going to be dependent on where you're getting that anxiety and when. On what's causing it. If it's just the case that, you know, you don't feel confident to go out in public at the moment, that's, you know, this can calm you down. This can help ease that anxiety, but it's not going to solve that problem completely. Partly that's a problem that you have to deal with yourself. You know, you have to find a solution for yourself. And I'm sorry that there is no easy solution for this. But what I would love to know is if you're having problems with this, or if you've had problems with this and you found a way of solving it, what did you do? How did you solve those problems with anxiety? Now, it might not be related to lockdown. It might be related to something completely different. You know, the first time that you took your camera out in public, how did you solve that problem of feeling a bit out of place? You might see somebody glance at you and think to yourself, are they looking at me? Or do they think that I'm doing something that I shouldn't do? How did that manifest to you? How did you resolve it? I know a lot of people might say that actually the only solution is to just keep doing the things that you're doing, and finally, you know, you'll get used to it enough that it won't bother you. But when people are kind of paralyzed into inaction, that's just as difficult a thing to deal with as people who are slowly taking the actions but are just nervous to take the actions. Anyway, I'd really love to know what you think below. It's a perennial problem. It's not one that's going to disappear when restrictions get lifted or when things return to normal. It's going to stay around possibly for every photographer at some level, depending on where they are and what they're doing. And maybe it's if they're trying a different sort of photography, or maybe if they're somewhere where they've never been before, or out in, like I said, out in public for the first time, or just in a situation where you don't really feel as comfortable as you think. I'd like to try and find a solution to that. And if I do, of course, I will post one on the channel. However, that's it for today's video. I'm sorry for the little ramble at the end, but these things I think are important. And if we're going to be photographers, we have to deal with everything concerning photography, not just the good stuff, but sometimes the bad and difficult stuff as well. That's it for this video. I've probably kept a photo back so that you can see that now. And so let's watch that as I tell you all about it in the little voiceover.
Thank you, Past Steve. Yes, I did keep one image back, and it happens to be the edit of that first image that I took on the side of the road. Now, I spent some time in Photoshop getting the right image for this, and I've added a little bit of a reflection, and I've changed the sky, because that's what I felt the picture needed. And like I've said before, and I'll say it again, this is your art, and if your art relies on some manipulation, you should not feel bad about that. The final image is the important thing. But also, perhaps this shows that you don't need to apply the latest dramatic sunset sky to every single image you take as well, that your edits can be subtle while still being effective. Finally, I wanted to show you this image too. This is the center, the very center of that image cropped after using super resolution. And quite frankly, I'm shocked at how good it looks. Someone commented on my super resolution video that they didn't see a difference, but I can categorically say I would not have got this picture without it. Although, I'll now have to find a new reason to go back to Elan. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you're brand new here, hit the subscribe button, the little bell icon at the end, and choose the all notifications tab that pops up. I'll see you in the next video. And of course, yes, do leave a comment below, because I'd love to know what you think about the video and about the different shots that you get. And have you used the 10-24mm lens or a 10-24mm lens on an APS-C camera? What do you think of it? Is it something that you'd like to do? I'm rambling now, so I will finish. Thank you ever so much for watching the video, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget, keep taking those photos.